Hello, I'm Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be talking about the Street Fighter collab that has just come live to North America and Japan at the same time. So this is quite an exciting event, not only because we have a simultaneous release, but because it has the most number of characters of any collab that I can think of, because not only are there 8 6-star cards available, each of those cards have 3 distinct evolutions, 2 regular evolutions and 1 weapon assist. So every card has tremendous amounts of flexibility and thus value. Furthermore, there are 9 5-star monsters available for a grand total of 17 different possible cards. So due to the sheer size of this collab, this is going to be a long video. I'm just going to preface it with that, so better buckle up because you're in for a long ride. So this collab will also have voice lines for all the characters, so you can hear them scream out their favorite iconic voice lines, as well as one thing that's going to keep it quite interesting is that, yes, it is a 6 Magic Stone event. They do have 2.5% chance of rolling any Diamond Egg, which means that the 8 different cards brings the total up to 20%. So we have a 20% Diamond Egg rate, which is one of the highest, I believe, for a collab. And the thing is, all the 6-star cards have value in some way, shape, or form. Like, this is a relatively high value collab. So you do have a good chance of rolling something that is going to actually improve your monster box, because yes, basically everything's kind of like shifted up a little bit, mostly because cards have unique active skills that cannot be replicated elsewhere. And being unique is important because we don't necessarily know what kind of applications certain orb changers or board changers are going to have in the future, but if you can do something that you couldn't have done beforehand, it's going to give you more flexibility and options moving forward into challenging content. And of course, if new stuff is released in the future, they might have synergy of those as well. So it is not necessarily like, it's pretty like upper high heavy weighted collab. So if you are planning on spending your Magic Stones, this might be a good place to do so, because you are most likely going to get something that is going to at least help you out. Now, one thing I do want to caution is that because it is a 6 Magic Stone event, there is a 5-to-1 trading ratio, which makes it much more challenging to justify exchanging in for one of this 6-star cards. And there will be the 7th year Japanese server anniversary stream, which will most likely reveal something truly big and spectacular. So right now it is February 18th, so you only have to wait for a couple of days, and it might reveal something of value that might want your Magic Stones more than this event. But again, if you do roll so, I know a lot of people already have, no real loss, because this is still a reasonably strong collab as a whole. So, limit breaking. So any card that has blue text in their level can be limit broken, which means they can be fused to Super Snow Globe, which increases their level beyond level 99. And then when they're at level 100 or above, they can receive Super Awakenings in solo mode to give them a little bit of extra power. You can read more about it here through my website. And weapon assists are basically special kinds of evolutions where a card becomes basically a permanent inherit. Basically, they're able to inherit their active skill, which is normal, and then they also will transfer over a specific set of awakenings. And these weapon assist cards have this special weapon assist awakening, and basically the idea is if the card has that, you transfer over awakenings as well as possible stats if they're on color. Now, doing so will be an irreversible process, except during these collab events. Normally, if you make a card into a weapon assist, you can't reverse this process, but you can monster exchange them at this point in time. So again, only make a weapon assist if you know you cannot find value out of those cards as a leader or a sub. So, as already mentioned beforehand, all 6-star cards in the Street Fighter collab have 3 unique evolution paths. And this does give them more value because it's more likely that at least one of these forms will help your monster box overall. Now, there is one small drawback. Their weapon assist form has a fixed level or fixed amount of skill ups. Basically, there's no skill ups available. So basically, all these cards have a reasonably shorter cooldown. So if you are using the weapon assist, not necessarily for the active, but for the awakenings, you are possibly going to run into the risk of having an active skill charge up a little too fast. And these weapon assists share the same active skill as their evolved forms. So the first card is Ryu, and he is one of the more iconic Street Fighter characters. His active skills unlock all orbs and then change or create an L in the bottom right hand corner. So this is new, it's different, like we don't have this type of active skill beforehand. You can also think that it is spawning exactly 5 light orbs, so if you're a team that's obviously light oriented, this definitely has applications, but having the L ready made naturally has synergy with Ryu's Awakenings. In terms of his leader skill, he turns out to be a 2.25 times health and recovery for light attribute cards, and he can spike up to 182.25 times attack with 43.75% damage reduction when matching 5 or more connected orbs and when using an active skill. So the damage reduction component comes from matching any 5 connected orbs. So it doesn't have to actually be light orbs. It could be like jammers or poisons. You can match those 5, you get the damage reduction. That combined with his innate 2.25 times health means he's actually quite a tanky leader. Like he has basically effectively 4 times effective health. So this is definitely going to aid you in playing through harder content because you have the durability. Now, the biggest drawback is that he has to use an active skill every turn in order to succeed. And that is problematic because we don't actually have a 1-turn cooldown light-based card. We do have several 2-turn cards, but that again is not going to solve our problem. And if you don't use an active skill every turn, you only have 20.25 times attack, which is negligible. It's just not going to do anything. So that is the main hurdle he does face at this current time. And other than that, he still has reasonably flexible team building. You can put anything on your team that you really want, as long as they are light-based, which means they can be light sub-attributes. So for instance, let's say you had a Dark Metatron and no other good light cards, you technically could use Dark Metatron because she has the light sub-attribute, but again, that may or may not necessarily be ideal. So he does have modest damage output personally. He has basically double 7 combo with Super Awakenings, and the L's definitely boost his own attack up significantly, especially when you factor in the fact that he makes an L with his active skill. Now, in theory, if you are quite fortunate or have lots of magic stones, you can make a Ryu system. Basically, the idea is you have 3 Ryu subs, 2 leaders, and in theory you can use an active skill every turn, which means you get to have that L every single turn. Is that really practical? I'm not quite sure, but it's kind of cool. You're technically getting your full multiplier and the damage reduction all the time, but again, is this going to be helpful because you don't have that many necessarily mechanics to counter the rest of the dungeon? You only have basically 1 active skill slot to actually use, so that may or may not necessarily be a good thing. So, in terms of his options for using an active skill every turn, you can use things like TARDIS or Halloween Mine, but they won't receive the stat transfer bonuses or the additional damage, so you are basically having 1 sub who is contributing significantly less, but then you get an active skill every single turn. Conversely, if you use something like Diao Chan or Rin, you do technically have an active skill every other turn, and in theory, because you can match 5 orbs all the time, you do have your damage reduction. So he's still going to be a safe leader. You still have your full multipliers in terms of health and recovery for all your cards, but it's just going to be a little slower to clear. Obviously, this is going to become more apparent in longer dungeons where you can't necessarily just chain active skills all the time, but in shorter content when you can pop between your 6 active skills and Ryu's short 5 and these cards 2, you do have at least probably an active skill every single turn. Now, if you are thinking about using double Diao Chan or double Rin or a combination of that, it does work for sure, but that means you are sacrificing essentially a third of your active skills just for proccing your leader skill, and that's going to leave you with a little less tools or options to counter the dungeon at hand. It still can definitely work, but it's just less ideal overall compared to using a 1-turn active skill card. So he is a reasonably strong leader in this form, and he may be the go-to choice for most players. Evolved Ryu completely changes everything. Basically, that's the same with any evolved card. His active skill now spawns a 3x3 dark box in the top left corner of your screen. And that has definitely practical applications because you instantly have a VDP formed, you can swipe your board, and bam, you have an explosive amount of damage right there. And that has synergy with his leader skill. His leader skill is 3 times attack and reduced damage taken by 35% when above 50% health. So this is basically the same kind of activation clause as Edward. When you're above 50% health, you have a big shield of 57.75% and bonus damage. But the problem is, you only get bonus damage when you match between 4 and 8 dark orbs. So he can definitely ramp up to 324 times, but he is reasonably orb hungry. And if you only connect 4 Dark Orbs, you only have 36 times attack, which is not really much. So he is going to be an inconsistent leader because you're just going to be hungry for Dark Orbs all the time, and that is going to be problematic. You're not going to have that activation consistency that we really want to have at this point in time. So it's going to be a little harder to justify using Evolved Ryu as a leader, just because, well, you don't have enough damage when you connect Dark Orbs, like fewer Dark Orbs. So in terms of his things that are going well for him, he does have high VDP damage. Like when you think about it, he's got 3 VDPs with Super Awakening, so he can be one of your hardest hitting cards possible for that void damage penetration if you can utilize him efficiently. And being able to spawn that dark box can have applications for certain farming teams. Like you don't want to think, boom, swipe the dark, make the dark box and match. If you have a Connect 5 leader, that will trigger their leader skills full multiplier, and Ryu, if they're used as a sub, will be dealing that meaningful amounts of damage. Of course, if this is a short dungeon, you can have enough active skills every turn to generate enough Dark Orbs. Evolved Ryu can definitely function as that type of leader. But generally speaking, I feel that his his base form is a little more useful overall. In terms of his weapon assist, I would strongly advise you not to make this weapon assist, mostly because it is rare we actually need 2 skillbind resists. Like most teams have enough skillbind coverage anyways, and then you're basically sacrificing what is essentially a strong card just for that. You get 1,000 more health, but again, is 1,000 health really going to make or break a team? Most likely not. So I would not convert into a weapon assist unless you have silly amounts of dupes and you don't want to make a Ryu system. Next is Chun-Li, and Chun-Li's base form allows her to spawn 3 water orbs at random on a 2-turn cooldown. So this means she can act as a skill inheritance base because she has a 2-turn cooldown, and the active skill itself is definitely helpful for mono water teams. Her active skill is just not where we want it to be because her evolved form is just significantly better with a similar activation clause. But basically you have to match 2+ water combos, and doing so will give you the damage reduction and 156 times multiplier. So in theory, 2 leaders can basically almost always ensure you have 2 water combos, but again, we're reaching that same problem of using 2 active skills from your team to guarantee enough orbs for activation is not necessarily the greatest thing because you have fewer options for more challenging floors. And her awakenings are TPA oriented, which means she wants to match ideally connected 4, which means she needs 7+ water orbs, so 1 extra water orb, which lowers the chances of activation again, and double devil killer. So she can definitely be a situational card, but I feel that her evolved form is stronger overall because she is actually quite a strong leader, as well as having a very unique and powerful active skill. So Evolved Chun-Li's active skill gives you a 99 turns water skyfall buff. That sounds outrageously strong, and it can be, but it may not necessarily be as amazing at first glance. Now, her leader skill is going to give you 2.25 times health and 225 times attack when you're matching 2+ water combos, in addition to a 43.75% damage reduction. So basically, you have to match 7 or more combos with 2 of those being water. Not the most difficult thing to do in the world, at least the 7 combo part, but you only receive your damage reduction when matching 2 or more water combos. So that plus 7% Skyfall chance can definitely help alleviate that inconsistency, and in theory you only need 1 of those active skills for the dungeon. You basically have 1 Chun-Li pop that, the other Chun-Li can carry and inherit, charge up accordingly, and use it whenever is necessary. So that does give her advantages in longer dungeons because you have more active skill efficiency, because you basically pop 1 active skill and you're good for the rest of the dungeon. So let's take a look at how this plus 7% is really going to affect ourselves moving forward. So right now, like, we have technically other options for Skyfall buffs, but they provide a higher percent chance increase compared to Chun-Li. So from a given board with no Skyfall intervention, there are 6 different elements that can fall down, so we are going to assume that there's a 16.67% chance of any orb appearing. So when you get plus 7%, I'm just going to assume that the way it works is that it's 16.67 plus 7, so now 23.67%, which is close to 1 in 4. So you have, statistically speaking, a 1 in 4 chance of gaining a water orb to fall down. So in theory, in order to have 6 water orbs fall down, you need to do 6 times 4, which is about 24 orbs or 8 combos. So Of course, statistics don't actually work like this in theory. Like, it could be greater, it can fluctuate greatly, but that's kind of the general idea that I have. So this is not necessarily an impossible condition to achieve every time in order to have 2 water combos present every single turn. So it can have modest levels of consistency, and yes, it is less than the 15% provided from things like Shomali and Sarasvati, but you do have to remember that because it is 99 turns buff, it's going to be lasting for the entire dungeon. And this definitely will pay dividends in longer dungeons because you can basically just ride it out for those 20 plus floors. But if you are playing through a shorter dungeon, using just direct orb changes are probably going to be a better option overall because they give you guaranteed activation. So Chun-Li's active skill definitely has more strengths in dungeons where you have to play longer periods of time. So as a leader, she definitely does hit quite hard. She does have favorable awakenings, like 7 combos are definitely helpful because she is a combo-oriented leader, and you can just populate your team with various combo subs. And I'm going to hopefully assume that there are going to be enough water orbs to keep producing enough meaningful damage, and 225 times is still a reasonably high multiplier overall. Now, this is the form that I would choose in most scenarios, but her weapon assist is actually quite powerful as well. Her weapon assist gives you a tape resist, which is the second tape resist available in North America, with the other being from Monster Hunter Collab, which hasn't returned for a long time. And then they do also provide a plus 80% health attack awakening. So basically you have the tape resist, which is situationally valuable, and you have a plus 1.5 times attack with that 80% awakening. So she is able to add a modest amount of damage to a single card because that extra 50% can be actually a big jump in terms of damage output, and having that incredibly valuable tape resist. So this is definitely a strong weapon assist, but again, I would not convert her to this form unless you have duplicates because her evolved form is still quite powerful as a card. Next is M.Bison, and his active skill in his base form changes the bottom row to Dark Orbs and then 2-turn delay. So it's kind of an anti-synergistic active skill because when you're making a row, you're probably going to kill things, but then you're delaying it. So it's like you're just adding cooldowns to both components, and just having one of those would probably be more helpful overall. His leader skill is 2 times attack and recovery for dark attributes, and then 6 times attack and reduce damage when matching 4 or more connected dark orbs. So 4 or more connected dark orbs should not be actually that difficult to achieve in the grand scheme of things, so you will have that nice 43.75% damage reduction. Unfortunately, his main source of damage comes from dark rows, so you really want to get that 6, and you don't have the damage reduction unless you match 4 or more, so you're kind of in this strange conundrum where you will deal some damage and have damage reduction if you match 4, but you really want to match 6 to actually kill things, so it can become a little problematic. His base active skill isn't necessarily short enough to keep chaining itself over and over again. It's just going to be a little problematic overall in my opinion. So in all honesty, his base form is definitely weaker overall, and I would most likely want to evolve him, generally speaking, because he is stronger in his evolved form. So his evolved form changes the second row from the bottom and bottom row to dark orbs. So you're actually forming 12 dark orbs at once that are all connected at the bottom. And this has beautiful synergy with the combo orb awakening because not only can you just rearrange them into 2 separate rows, but you can just leave them as is and bam, you have that combo orb awakening trigger, which means you'll have 2 enhanced combo orbs falling down after the match. So that is definitely a big deal because it can help you overcome combo shields, and it can act as a pseudo +2 combo count while sweeping the floor prior. So his leader skill is 3 times attack when matching 4 or more connected dark orbs, up to 5 times at 6. So again, it's obviously favoring rows there at this point. And then you get 3 times attack and reduce damage taken when matching 5 or more connected non-dark orbs. So you always have this damage reduction, and this damage reduction is 75%. That's a huge amount of damage reduction because that's effectively 4 times health and 4 times recovery because you're only taking 25% of the intended damage. So you can always match 5 of something that's connected in the vast majority of boards. And then you get additional damage when matching basically 4 to 6 dark orbs. So you have some degree of damage control, you have a reliable damage reduction, and you have high burst damage potential because you can tap into those rows. And generally speaking, the main hurdle that this team will face is combo shields, and that can be somewhat solved with the combo orb awakening. And that is definitely a big point, but one thing to remember is that his active skill may actually override activation for his full leader skill, because when you override 2 rows at the bottom, you may not actually have 5 of any given orb in the top 3 rows, which can definitely be a little problematic. But again, he's a reasonably flexible leader that will feel a little clunky to play because you're basically blobbing lots of orbs at the same time, so your clear times might be a little bit slower, but he is quite resilient and durable overall. Now, this is definitely his stronger form overall, and his weapon assist form does provide you with 40% poison resist, but the thing is, it's on a 13-turn cooldown, and Sasuke, which is a reasonably common 5-star from the Rare machine, has 2 poison orb resist as well at the same time, with a slightly shorter 9-turn cooldown, which is definitely less ideal, but again, is it worth really trading your lone M.Bison for the weapon assist? I generally would feel the answer is no, but just remember that a 40% poison resist can pair with either Krallis Rapier, which is Raytheon's weapon assist, or King Bradley's, and you will have 100% poison resist, which is arguably the most important resistance to have, because spawning poison orbs is definitely much more lethal than jammers overall. Base Gill. So Base Gill has numerous TPAs, and his active skill changes the far left column to wood and then deal 10,000 fixed damage to all enemies. The damage is quite negligible, and the 5 orb generation is okay, but it's on a 6-turn cooldown. There are better column makers in my opinion. His leader skill is 2 times attack when 4 or more combos, up to 5 times at 7, so that's definitely easy to achieve. And then 3 times attack and reduce damage taken by 25% when matching 2 plus wood combos. So you're modestly orb hungry, and your damage reduction only occurs with your matching of wood combos, which is definitely going to be a drawback. But the problem is, his leader skill, his multiplier numbers are reasonable, but the problem is the damage reduction is so conditional, it's not necessarily going to be a guaranteed thing all the time, that it's going to be problematic. Furthermore, his active skill doesn't even guarantee activation because it only spawns 5, not the 6 needed wood orbs you require for his leader skill. So I would honestly just evolve Gill, because his evolved form is significantly stronger. So another thing, I guess you could pair of Diablos, but there are better 7x6. Well, there are better 7x6 compositions than base Gill plus Diablos. So evolved Gill changes the top row and second top row to wood orbs. So kind of like M.Bison in the sense that you make 2 rows of your primary color, which means it triggers the combo orb awakening, which gives you the same benefits of overcoming combo shields in the future. But his leader skill is actually quite proficient as well. You have 4 times attack for wood attribute cards, and then you have 4 times health, I should say, and then 3 times attack when 5 or more combos, and then 4 times attack when matching 4 or more connected orbs, up to 6 times at 6 orbs. So you can match any 6 orbs, not just wood, in order to trigger 324 times attack, which is huge. That's a very large multiplier. And you have 4 times health, and you have basically always guaranteed 3 activation consistency, and in theory you can have some damage control. Just match less connected orbs and you suddenly have a lower multiplier, and in theory if you connect only 4 orbs you have 144 times. May have certain applications for damage control scenarios, but the point of the matter is you can deal explosive amounts of damage while having a flexible team composition. The reason I say that is because you can technically still load up 7 combo cards, you can load up row cards, you can load up TBA cards, depending on what kind of build you want to achieve. The reason being is that with a 7 combo TPA composition, just matching 4 connected of any orb should always be doable. You can always hit 7 combos, and if those are 4 wood orbs, you get the huge TPA damage bonus. So it definitely is viable, but of course you also can run wood rows if that's something that turns you on, and you are able to deal huge amounts of damage when matching a wood row, or in all honesty just matching 6 of other orbs. So he does have that nice strong activation consistency with an interesting active skill that does give you the enhanced combo orb to give you plus combo count for certain spawns that have higher combo shields, because you might have to blob combos overall. So he is definitely a powerful leader, but he does suffer from the same problems of any 4 times health, is that they're vulnerable to the gravity plus hit combos. So we're starting to see in Arena 5 and Alt Arena 2 spawns that do a 99% gravity immediately followed by an attack, and any 4 times health team gets instantly killed by this. So they have to have some form of damage reduction to counter this. So that is definitely a drawback. So that's why things like Beach Barber and Chun-Li are starting to struggle in these types of dungeons as well. So as a whole, the Evolved Gill is definitely the evolution to go for. And another thing to keep in mind is that he is a strong VDP card with triple skill boost as well, so he can fit into certain compositions that need that nice damage penetration active skill or awakening, because when you think about it, his active skill forms 12 wood orbs, which means you can form that 3x3 box because that only requires 9. And then his weapon assist provides you 60% blind resist, which is definitely helpful overall, but again, his evolved form is quite powerful, and I would be hesitant to actually convert him to this form because he offers so much in that evolved form as a leader or a strong and powerful VDP option. Akuma is one of the strongest collab cards available, and he's one of 2 S-rank cards in my opinion. And this is because in his evolved form, he does basically a bit of everything. But in his unevolved form, he's still actually quite strong. Basically, all 3 of his forms are amazing, and rolling 3 of him would be ideal so you can have 1 of each. But his base form's active skill reduces your health by 50%, 100 times dark damage to an enemy, probably not sufficient for button farming. And then for 1 turn, only fire, water, light, and dark orbs can appear. So that's a very unique active skill, and it creates a higher chance of skyfalls from occurring because, in theory, each orb has a 25% chance of appearing, which is higher than that 16.67%. So this can be kind of a weird way to increase your skyfall count, but because it's not allowing hard orbs to fall down, it allows you to keep your health lower. You're not going to accidentally skyfall into a healing combo, so that definitely can have some applications in certain low health build teams. In terms of his leader skill, it's 2.5 times attack when below 99% health. So as long as you've been hit in some way, shape, or form, you have bonus damage, you have additional movement time, you have 5 times attack and reduced damage taken by 25% when 5 or more combos, which is always going to happen. But the problem is his multipliers are not that impressive, and he feels very similar to Dark Metatron at this point in time. So if you have Dark Metatron, why would you want to run him? But with that being said, his sub-potential, ironically, on Dark Metatron teams is quite strong, or any low-health attack team, basically teams that want to be below 50% health, because his active skill has natural synergy there, but you have the ability to gain Super Awakening, so you could have 2 7 combos and 2 attack while below 50%, which means he would have 16 times personal damage when below 50% health, which is truly outrageous. In theory, you can throw on a weapon assist on top of that, and that 16 becomes 32 times. Like, this is like absolutely bonkers amount of personal damage output. So base Akuma can definitely do truly magical and exciting things for those low health style teams. So I can definitely foresee him being used as a very potent damaging sub on teams that like to be below 50% health. Now, Evolved Akuma is definitely, in my opinion, his strongest form because he has so much varying flexibility and utility brought to the team. His active skill is a Fujin style active skill, so he ignores the damage absorb mechanics, so things like Parvati, Sopdet, Vishnu all get nullified out for 1 turn, and then reduce enemies' health by 35%. So you get the damage absorb void first, then the gravity. So you will have that interesting amount of gravity on a 22 turn cooldown, so his cooldown didn't get extended greatly, even though he has a large 35% gravity. And now his leader skill is actually quite exciting as well. You have 2.25 times attack and recovery for dark attribute cards, so that is a huge amount of recovery at the same time, as well as flat damage for dark cards. But you also have 9 times attack and reduced damage taken by 50% when 9 or more combos. So dual evolved Akumas has a bonkerishly high 506.25 times attack, 6.25 times recovery, and 75% damage reduction. But the problem is that is not going to happen on 6x5 boards. The average 6x5 board has 7 to 8 combos, and it's unlikely you're going to have those 9 combos every single time. So you're almost somewhat forced to always pair with a 7x6 leader. Now, thankfully, there is Gilgamesh available for 7x6 pairing because they also have the dark sub-attribute, which means they do fully benefit from his multipliers for bonus damage and bonus recovery. So pairing with Diablos gives you a very high damage reduction level. It's kind of similar to Roach Diablos, similar sort of idea. You also have that flat recovery. You also have large amounts of damage output, and making 9 combos on a 7x6 board is definitely achievable every single time, but the drawback is you might have low amounts of orb movement time. Conversely, pairing with Gilgamesh gives you bonus movement time. It gives you a higher damage multiplier, but no extra damage reduction. So you can kind of customize your needs depending on what you actually need. But one nice thing about 7x6 pairing is that you don't actually need to own any one of the. You only need to own one of these specific cards to gain the benefit. If you have Diablos, you can pair with Akuma. If you have Akuma, you can pair with a Gilgamesh. You don't actually have to own all these cards to function well, so this does give some flexibility. So he can be an incredibly strong leader on 7x6 with a powerful Fujin style active skill, but the excitement does not stop there. His awakenings and super awakenings are kind of bonkers as well. You have three skill boosts, you have follow-up attack, and triple 7 combo with super awakenings. So he's kind of like Zila, except he's dark based and he has a Fujin style active skill instead of Zila's bicolor board. So he's providing tremendous amounts of value for your teams, and he can be used as a sub or a leader. Remember, as a sub, you're a natural Fujin style active skill with triple skill boost, follow-up attack, lots of 7 combos. It would be more favorable to run him as opposed to Fujin on your teams if you're actually able to fit those colors or typings in. And his God typing means he can be used on Dark Metatron teams, which may be advantageous for certain players who want to bring Fujin style active skills or lack follow-up attacks. Just be aware that he has no time extends, so Dark Metatron teams struggle with orb movement time, generally speaking. Now, one last point I want to notify you is that Diablos plus Akuma's active skills, which is a viable 7x6 pairing, creates a 55% gravity. You pop Akuma, then Diablos, you basically can push any spawn below their 50% resolve, which may have interesting applications every now and then. So, generally speaking, this is his supreme and superior form, and this is the one I would make for the vast majority of players. Now, his weapon assist is also incredibly strong for several reasons. It comes with the skill boost awakening, so that definitely helps certain farming teams. It helps various ranking dungeon teams have their active skills up in time. But the problem is you're sacrificing an incredible card. Conversely, another amazing benefit is that because it's a Fujin style active skill, the cooldown is quite long. So you don't run the risk of the base active skill being overwritten if you need that for those team compositions, as well as giving that extra skill boost means it could charge up faster if you're actually wanting to use that active skill. But generally speaking, I would never have changed Akuma to his weapon assist because it's so valuable in his evolved form overall. Next is base Sakura, and this is her superior form overall. Her active skill creates an L shape of fire orbs basically in the bottom left side, and then one turn of 2 times orb movement time. So you can override those time debuffs, you get a nice orb generation, which synergizes with her leader skill and awakenings. Her leader skill is very similar to Beach Barber and Chun-Li. You have the same 4 times health and same 144 times attack multiplier, but you have to match 5 or more connected fire orbs. So you have less activation consistency compared to Beach Barber and Chun-Li, and amusingly enough, they share similar awakenings. She has 4 popular killer awakenings, but she has L's instead of additional killers. So that can definitely lower her effective damage output. But in theory, because you're almost always going to be matching 5 connected fire orbs anyways, you put them into that L. She does get significantly higher damage, which is probably going to have more effective damage, assuming that it was either a spawn that has 2 of her 4 killer awakenings. So she is similar to Beach Barber and Chun-Li, which will probably play in a similar manner, but she can't use water or fire. She basically has to use fire-based cards, so it's going to definitely restrict her team compositions a bit more, but thankfully you can tap into Mel, you can tap into Hestia for the enhanced Heart Orb Awakenings in order to heal more, to basically replenish that health pool. So she does definitely have strong leadership potentials, but again, the issue with just flat 4 times health teams is that these gravity plus hit combos will instantly execute them. So that can definitely be problematic. But one advantage she does have over Beach Barber and Chun-Li is that her active skill cooldown is only 5 turns, which means you can inherit more utility over top as necessary much more easily. So this definitely can open up some compositions that you could never have done before. And one notable composition is that players might start using her as a leader swap. Generally speaking, Superman is the superior option, but not everyone owns Superman. But basically that is you could leader swap like Saline and your Sakura with Matcha and basically get that extra bonus rank experience while being able to clear challenging content, because Sakura can definitely clear things like Arena 5. So she is a strong and powerful card, but you just have to bear in mind that she does suffer from the same drawbacks of any 4 times health teams. So her evolved form is less ideal overall in my opinion, because her active skill, while being interesting, it's 1 turn delay and then a forced Skyfall of Fire, Water, Light, and Heart, so increased chance for those to Skyfall into place. But it's her leader skill that's just too much effort for not that much reward. You only have 5 seconds of orb movement time. It's fixed. You can't change that. And then you have 2.25 times health and 225 times attack when matching 6 or more combos with the damage reduction tied to the combo count. So you can definitely activate this on a regular basis, but this is not an exceptionally amazing leader skill. You have 2.25 times health, 2.25 times health, 43.75% damage reduction, essentially 4 times effective health, but the damage reduction is a bit superior. So it's reasonable. You have 225 times, which is still reasonable as well, but it's nothing truly special. And the fixed 5 seconds or movement time is going to make things a little problematic. Most notably is the fact that you are going to have issues with making follow-up attacks, but more issues with possibly VDP boards. So it is going to be a little harder to make those more complex patterns because you only have 5 seconds of orb movement time. Now, with all that being said, she definitely can make a strong follow-up attack sub for mono-red teams because you have the enhanced heal awakenings. It's a definitely much more offensive option compared to Hestia. So something to keep in mind as well. So do you need a strong leader like Beach Barber and Julie, similar to that, or do you want a powerful mono-red sub? Again, the choice is up to you because these are all definitely viable viable evolution paths. In terms of her weapon assist, I'm not that impressed of it, unfortunately, because it does have team health, team recovery, enhanced heal orb, which are nice, but it's very similar to Sleipnir's weapon assist, which many players own because he was a ranking dungeon reward, and I think you could even buy it with rainbow event medals at some point. I could be wrong, but the point is the weapon assist is not going to give you that much extra value considering her other 2 forms can definitely work out at this point in time. The next card is Base Sagat, and Base Sagat allows you to create 3 fire orbs at random on a 2-turn cooldown, so cool, you can definitely inherit things over top of it. And then his leader skill is 5 times attack and reduce damage taken by 50% when above 80% health, and then you can scale up to 3 times attack with 3 fire combos. So you have 75% damage reduction when you're high health, but the problem is your window of opportunity is actually effectively smaller than something like Edward teams who need to be above 50%, but they have a slightly smaller damage reduction. So he is orb hungry. He does have a smaller window of opportunity. I'm not a huge fan of these types of leader skills, but some players might enjoy it. But being that orb hungry, not having activation consistency is definitely a liability at this point in time. So I would definitely focus on his evolved form. So his evolved form gives you 1 turn of reducing the enemy's defense by 100%. Cool. And then increase combo count by 2. Situationally useful combo count active skill overall, but it's his leader skill that's quite exciting. His leader skill is no Skyfalls, and then you have 5 times attack when there are 8 or fewer orbs left on the board. So let's do a bit of math. If you make 7 combos, you cleared 21 orbs. So in theory, you only need to make 7 combos plus 1 of those being a TPA match to activate this component, or make 8 plus combos as well. That also works. So you always can activate this component here, but you also get 50% damage reduction and more attack when matching 7 or more combos. So a given board almost never has 6 combos. It almost always has 7 to 8. And because of that, you always can tap into the 75% damage reduction, which is huge. That is 4 times effective health and 4 times effective recovery, because you always have this damage reduction taking place, unless you have player skill issue, which you definitely can correct over time. But the point of the matter is you have 225 times attack with a huge amount of damage reduction and activation consistency. Again, you can match exactly 7 combos with no TPA to have some damage control, but you always have that damage reduction. And then match 8 or more combos or 1 of a TPA and you hit your full 225 times multiplier. And this naturally has synergy with his 7 combo awakenings and his TPAs, because when you think about it, if you are needing to match a TPA to hit your activation consistency, you're going to hit that TPA, and then bam, you have this huge amount of extra damage from your 2 leaders. So this is actually quite an exciting leader. It's kind of like a more stable Nicol Bolas with a lower damage ceiling. But again, unlike Nicol Bolas, you have an active skill that charges up faster. You also have more consistent personal damage. You don't have to always match TPAs, and you are bind immune, which is definitely a huge plus, which Nicol Bolas is not. So Evolve Sagat is definitely going to be quite a strong leader, and you can use any sub. You don't have to be mono fire. You could use utility as needed. You need bind and awoken bind cleared, you can stick in Odin Dragon because you can use any sub. So this is actually quite a powerful leader in my opinion, but the biggest drawbacks are the no Skyfalls and the need to hit 7 combos. And the problem is follow-up attack boards or VDP boards may not necessarily be always possible because you can make those patterns and you may not necessarily have 7 combos available. I guess on the bright side, you can use his active skill to correct that, so he does have value in that sense. So Evolve Sagat is definitely a powerful leader, but his weapon assist form is also strong at the same time, which can definitely compete with what players want to do. So his weapon assist form provides the same single resist awakenings that the Rainbow Event Metal Trojan Horse or Odysseus weapon assist provides, but you get this below 50% attack awakening, and this definitely makes it quite powerful overall because you have the blanketing of resistances, but you also give the chance of providing your that sub with significantly higher or 2 times higher personal damage. So on low health teams like Dark Metatron, Razor, they're definitely going to find value of this weapon assist. So something to keep in mind, but again, I would honestly keep Sagat in his evolved form because it is quite a powerful leader overall. Next is base Karin. So in my opinion, I feel like Karin is the weakest of all of the 6-star cards. So her base form creates a light cross, a single light cross, and +1 combo count. Nothing that special. Her leader skill is just she's just a light color cross leader, but she only can trigger off of light color crosses, so her activation consistency is much lower overall. I'm not a huge fan of color cross leaders at this point in time. Like, you can definitely pair 7x6, but again, because you only can match a single color, it's definitely going to lower her damage output. And in all honesty, her evolved form is the stronger one. So I'm going to mostly be focusing there. So Evolve Karin's active skill is unique. It spawns 5 fire, light, and heal orbs at random. So that as used as an inherit will give you a guaranteed follow-up attack on a 6x5 board while giving you light and fire orbs for those teams. So definitely meaningful there. And then you also have 1.5 times orb movement time. Her leader skill is still a color cross leader, but she can use fire or light crosses, which greatly improves her consistency. And she comes with built-in RCV and a natural 7x6 board. So that is a big deal. Like, you have much higher activation consistency. And her awakenings give follow-up attack, which is definitely helpful. Gives you 2 team health to help offset the no health multiplier. But she can pair with Kenshin. And Kenshin likes to match fire and light crosses as well, but he gives you damage reduction. So that does give you higher effective health. You get a 25% damage reduction, which definitely can be meaningful. But the problem is, even with this pairing, you're still a fragile color cross leader, which is not that great overall at this point in time. Like, yes, you can deal spectacular amounts of damage, but what's the point in dealing damage if you can't actually survive incoming mechanics? So I would not necessarily, I'm not too fond of this card, generally speaking, and in theory, you only can really pair this 7x6 leader with other color cross leaders, which further limits her usage overall. So because of all these reasons, it may be justifiable enough to convert her to a weapon assist form, because if I'm not mistaken, there are only 2 other weapon assists that provide cloud resist awakening, which can be invaluable in certain dungeons, and it does work in co-op because weapon assists take effect unlike super awakenings. So the extra team health and team recovery definitely can add bulk to your team, as well as the cloud resist. So it might be worth converting to a cloud resist if you have really no interest in color cross leaders. So now we come to the 5-star base cards. That was a lot of talking. Now, the 5-star base cards have around 918 weighted stats at level 110. So it's going to be a little harder to justify using them as subs because they require high levels of investment for what essentially amounts to lower weighted stats compared to an average card. But most of these cards bring very unique active skills, which can definitely improve their overall viability. So Cammy is the first one, and her active skill reduces damage taken by 100% for a single turn, and then changes second row from the top to wood orb. So it's a wood orb generator plus 100% damage immunity. Interesting combination, so something to keep in mind. But it's her awakenings that can give her some value. She has double attacker killers as well as 2 skill boosts. So at this point in time, there's no triple attacker killer card, so having double is still kind of the best you can get, so to speak. And in all honesty, I can see her being a situational sub for either mono wood teams, but she definitely can be used in future ranking dungeons when Zeus Verse is the desirable leader. And that is because Zeus Verse teams can sweep content with a single combo, and the double attacker killers helps ensure that Cammy can crush any single floor that has that particular typing. But her active skill has beautiful synergy as well. Zeus Verse has to remain at 100% health to deal his damage. If he's below 100%, you don't deal any damage. So if you know there's a preemptive coming up on floor 5, you pop Kami on floor 4. You get the you get the 100% damage reduction shield, you get the wood rose to make combos as well, but then when you enter floor 5, the preemptive does no damage to you and you just keep playing as normal. Definitely an alternative to actually healing, using healing actives, but the fact that Kami can be a valuable sub for that team makes her more useful overall. So that's where I can definitely foresee her being used at this point in time. New things might open up in the future. Now, Ken is the only card in the whole collab that comes with a special orb skin. Woo! And they actually look kind of cool. So he does have lower rolling rates compared to other 5-star cards, but higher rolling rates compared to 6-star cards. So his active skill changes the second column from the left to fire orbs, and then 1 turn increased combo count. So it's a single column generator with a combo count, nothing that spectacular. His awakenings can make him a reasonably strong mono fire sub, because you have double 7 combo with 2 TPAs or 3 TPAs and 7 combo. So he can definitely be a sub on Shiro teams or Evolve Madus, because Shiro, he has the correct colors for Shiro, and Evolve Madu loves TPA based cards as well. So Ken can definitely fit in there, but he is mostly held back by his lower weighted stats. So he's not necessarily anything special, but he's a reasonably strong card overall. Again, Orb Skin. You can actually purchase this as an IAP bundle to get Ken as a guaranteed card, but again, that's up to personal preference. Vega is the next 5-star card, and his active skill will first lock light and heal orbs, and then change the entire board to dark. So this is kind of an interesting twist on a board changer, because you're basically guaranteeing yourself a certain like the number of light and hard orbs present on the board, and then creating a very dark heavy board at the same time. So statistically speaking, you're probably gonna have maybe 4 or so light and hard orbs, so then you probably have like a nice 20-10 distribution. So this may or may not necessarily be the best distribution for your team overall, but by being able to lock in those hard orbs when you have 5, you can make yourself a follow-up attack. If the board distribution is favorable, you can lock them in, so you have nice row boards. You also could have nice VDP boards. It's just an interesting way to manipulate. Instead of using just a bicolor board changer of light and dark, you have additional options. So you can use it instead of a tricolor as well. So it is interesting overall. We may not necessarily have super good usage for him at this point in time, but I can definitely see it being useful on mono dark teams, mostly as an inherit, because situationally it's not the greatest sub overall. One other thing I really want to point out is that because some of these orbs are locked, you can definitely counter spinners. And the idea is with spinning orbs, they basically change the orbs every XYZ seconds, but if you lock the light and hard orbs, you push those locked orbs over top of the spinner, they can't be changed. So now you can basically match your board as you normally would without fear of that orb changes something else and ruining your combo count or pattern. So this definitely can be an interesting counter to spinning orbs instead of just being a generic board lock. Now, speaking of generic board locks, we have Rainbow Mika. And Rainbow Mika is able to change the entire board to all 6 elements, so 5 colors plus hearts, and jammers, and then lock all orbs. And this is on a 5-turn cooldown, so this is definitely quite short. But the problem is your board distribution is going to be quite diluted. You're not going to most likely have enough orbs for a follow-up attack, and definitely not enough orbs for a VDP. And it basically just kind of feels like a budget Chariot Roots options, which is mostly going to be used on rainbow-oriented teams. So it's going to be used to counter spinners, but again, it's not that great overall. I guess one nice aspect is that it does guarantee 7 combos, because each element generated, including jammers, must have 3 orbs present. Zangief is the next 5-star card, and he does have a truly unique active skill. He changes the outermost orbs of the board to fire, so basically it makes kind of a weird hollow box, kind of like how Zhao Yu makes his board when you're playing through his Descend if you hit him enough and he gets to attack you back. So that makes exactly 18 fire orbs on 6x5, which does have interesting applications. You are able to break that up into 3 rows. You also can save those orbs in such a way that you match 1 row per turn, so it can use 1 active skill to solve 3 floors. You also can use it after using a mono board changer afterwards. So let's say you use a full wood board changer and then you pop Zangief right after. You now have an 18-12 split with heavier emphasis on fire, which means you can match VDPs or 7 combo VDP or a 6 combo triple row board. So does definitely have value there, but I don't feel it's going to be as impactful overall because that mono board plus Zangief gives the same net effect as the double row makers that we have been able to acquire in the last several events. Yu-Gi-Oh! And the Fate Assassin are both farmable options that provide double row making, which is in theory a similar net effect to Zangief plus a full board changer. If we use Yu-Gi-Oh! After Machine Goemon, we still have that 18-12 split of fire and water. So it's not necessarily accomplishing too much more there. So that's why I'm feeling he's not as impressive overall, because he is providing that same net effect as the full board plus double row making, just changing the colors around. But I guess you definitely can stagger out the fire orb matching to conserve active skills when playing through certain dungeons or for farming setups that can proc off 5 or 6 connected fire orbs. So definitely an interesting active skill overall, but I'm not quite sure how we can fully abuse it at this point in time. Of course, things might change in the future, kind of like how Thouser, when he first came out with his weird kind of cross of light orbs, might change farming builds again. Next is Dhalsim, and his active skill reduces binds and awoken binds by 5 turns, and then changes light to water and dark to fire. So you basically have a Green Odin alternative to awoken and bind clearing, but it's on a 7 instead of a 9 turn cooldown, so it can charge up faster. Now, of course, you can't use him as an inherit on your mono light and mono dark teams, but on your mono fire or mono water teams, it's going to be an incredibly strong active skill. Most notably that I can think off the top of my head is Beach, Barbara, and Julie, because, well, she needs water and fire orbs, and clearing those binds and awoken binds while producing orbs at the same time is definitely valuable. So therefore, it never becomes a dead active skill, because it's at least an orb changer at the end of the day that does not break up hearts. So you have a 4 elemental board of fire, water, wood, and hearts with heavier emphasis on fire and water, which is definitely strong for those types of teams. In terms of his sub potential, he does have 3 killers, but he has no skill boost. I would definitely just inherit it on top of something like Blue Cotton, which is a very favorable sub for Beach Barber and Julie teams. And now your Blue Cotton has a 12 turn cooldown for double orb changer with awoken and bind clearing. So quite strong card overall. Definitely gives value to the mono fire and mono wood teams. Balrog is the other big prize of this collab, because he is the only card in Puzzle and Dragons that has a 350 times damage nuke. And being able to deal 350 instead of 300 times damage opens up new team building compositions. It means we can button through content we could never have buttoned through in the past. It also means we could possibly use lower attack subs to button the same content, which might give more players the options to build new teams or shuffle around team compositions to make things more efficient. Furthermore, his active skill has no animation whatsoever, so it's a very fast button. So in terms of efficiency, he's incredibly powerful in that regards. And for example, let's say we have a card with 3,500 attack, which is definitely on the lower end. Now, this button will now yield 1,225,000 damage, as opposed to a 300 times hitting only for 1,050,000. This is quite a large difference overall, and definitely expands the button damage even further with higher attack value cards, which can definitely be achieved through the Co-op Boost Awakening. So being able to button down content is invaluable for players who want to farm content as fast and efficiently as possible. But the main issue is that buttoning through content does not save you stamina. It saves you time. So if you're the type of player who doesn't play in co-op, this is probably not going to be a practical card for you. But if you play in co-op, you like to button things, like to go through as quickly as possible because of like time constraints or just you want to be efficient, he's definitely be an invaluable card. You will want to have numerous duplicates to be able to make various high damage button teams. Blanca is the next 5-star card, and he's very similar to Chun-Li in the sense that it's the same 99 turns Skyfall buff, but for wood. So the same applications of 7% chance increased gives you slightly higher chance of acquiring those orbs. Definitely strong on like Zila teams who are very wood orb hungry. Basically any mono wood team is going to benefit from this. So like Zila, Razor, Vraska, New Year's Artemis, they're going to definitely love these extra wood orbs, especially in longer dungeons, because you pop that active skill at some point, and then for the rest of the dungeon you have an easier time finding your damaging orbs. So definitely a very powerful card to have around, but the only drawback is the leadership is not that strong, the sub potential is quite weak. It's not necessary. It's mostly just going to be used as an inherit, but still definitely strong overall. And then lastly, we come to Alex, the final card in the Street Fighter collab. So Alex is sadly very underwhelming. He doesn't do very much. He's a very situational VDP card. With his Super Awakenings, he can be 8.4 times attack for personal damage with no combo count requirements. So situationally, he might be a VDP card, but we have so many better VDP options at this point in time. His active skill delays enemies for 1 turn and changes the bottom row to light orb. So he might have very niche applications, but he is definitely one of the weakest cards in the entire event. So, in conclusion, the Street Fighter collab is a massive event with so many different cards that give so much new value and variety and unique active skills or kits to Puzzle & Dragons. Is it worth rolling in? It definitely can be, because basically all the diamond eggs, which have a 20% chance of being rolled, have high value. Even purchasing the IAP bundle for a guaranteed diamond egg can be meaningful, because almost anyone you get is going to be helpful overall. Most of them make strong or very strong leaders. There are numerous unique and powerful active skills that cannot be replicated elsewhere. And the biggest hurdle, I say, is that you're going to have a difficult time rolling any one specific card, because there are 17 different possible things you can roll. So with that being said, let me know what you think about the Street Fighter collab in the comments below. Do you think this event is worth heavily rolling in? And if so, what have you rolled thus far, and what do you hope to actually acquire? Hopefully you all have a fantastic day. I wish you all the best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.